The mod gang was probably the most unpopular idea in Star Wars The Book of Boba Fett, but given that The Mandalorian Season 3 promises to return to everyone's favourite desert planet, are they going to come back, and will Boba's story continue? That's what we're going to be talking about in today's video, but first, Michelle Ang, who voices Omega in The Bad Batch, recalls the first time she met Temuera Morrison. In a new interview with Looper, she explains her experience of what it was like to meet the New Zealand legend. She says, quote, "Tem is an icon, not only because of his clone father identity, but also just as an actor." She says, "And for actors in New Zealand, the circles are small. I'm so excited to carry on that legacy of the accent in the Star Wars world." Michelle gets it, guys. As I like to say, Tem is a gem, and so is she, to be honest. She met him at Star Wars Celebration back in May, and now we need Omega and Boba Fett to actually meet in a show. Now we know from Jennifer Corbett that's probably not going to happen in The Bad Batch Season 2, but maybe in a third season, or as I've said in the past, in a future season of the Mandoverse. But reading these comments really warmed my heart, like the lavas of Mustafar. Really awesome stuff, guys. And one thing really special about her interaction with Tem is how she familiarized herself with the Star Wars universe and the Fett family in particular after accepting the vocal role of Omega. Really looking forward to the future of this character. And one final thing by Michelle Ang, during the press tour for The Bad Batch recently, she also spoke about her own roots and how they impacted the character of Omega. When Omega feels like something is wrong, just the way she delivers it, as matter of fact, and also sometimes I think the New Zealandness of being quite, weirdly casual. I always thought that New Zealand has this extremely casual way of talking about big things, and it works well in a sense with Omega's age, so quite often my offers in the record are inspired by the Kiwi casualness, and I think that lends quite a specificity to Omega as a character, and you do often find that the personality of the actor or voice actor rubs off on the character they play. I think it was in an interview with Anthony Daniels that he spoke about C-3PO living in his head, and when he's in the costume, his real-life experiences and emotions impact the performance. But those are the comments from Michelle Ang about her character Omega, sister of Alpha, also known as Boba. And speaking of Boba Fett, can The Mandalorian Season 3 redeem The Book of Boba? It received a lot of criticism in its first season for the writing, some of the creative decisions, the directing, and more than anything, the two biggest gripes, Boba Fett himself, the titular character, not being in a lot of the second half, and also the undoing of the emotional impact of The Mandalorian Season 2 finale. But can Season 3 turn things around? Well, I think it can. For one thing, as we've spoken about in the past, something also echoed by Temuera Morrison and Dave Filoni, Boba Fett needs to return to his roots, being the badass we saw him as in Chapter 14. Now, of course, by this stage, his journey's changed. He's no longer a bounty hunter, he's the daimyo of Tatooine. But maybe him not being the main character and being a side character is being true to his roots, because he shines when he's not in the spotlight. He's going to be an amazing ally to Djarin, not to mention he's got Fennec, Black Chrysanthemum, and, well, I guess these guys. But I believe that Season 3 can cleanse our palette, just take a step back, recontextualize everything, and maybe change the perception of the Book of Boba, and potentially even set up a future season. But it's not just about Boba Fett arbitrarily killing people, it's also about his next step. In Season 1 he talked about everyone watching him, waiting for his next move. That can absolutely factor into the third season. A throwaway line in the finale may have set up something huge. Boba tells Fennec that maybe he's not cut out to be the ruler, and he could defer this to Cobb Vanth, who now has modifications. And that brings me on to the aforementioned mod gang. Given their role in the Battle of Mos Espa and teaming up with the Mos Pelgo residents, or should I say Freetown, I think Vanth could be a great leader and mentor to those youngsters. They could be his personal bodyguards, and they'd learn a lot from him. Being shot by Cad Bane taught him that Tatooine needs more defense. The Tuskens and Jawas have their own tribes, but as far as the big towns, a small militia could be formed, and that could be the start of a really interesting dynamic between the daimyo and the locals, which would be mutually beneficial. So the next syndicate or challenger for the planet is gonna have to do a lot better than the Pikes. Even though a lot of fans were disappointed by Boba in his own show, we haven't forgotten what he was like in Chapter 14. And many fans of the Fett family, myself included, just want to see Boba being Boba again. Now don't get me wrong, I love a good portion of the Book of Boba Fett. Boba had a really meaningful character development, but that doesn't mean he has to take a back seat. We also want to see him in action action. I mean, at the end of the day, Boba Fett really is an action figure character. And if the rumors are true and he plays the role of a meaningful side character in Mando Season 3, I think that can make a lot of fans fall in love with the character again. And the creatives, notably Jon Favreau and Robert Rodriguez, can learn from their mistakes. And I do think, given the list of directors, they're gonna take this opportunity to really turn things around for Boba. He might not have the most screen time, but just showing up as part of the restoration of Mandalore as an ally could be very important. One of the biggest criticisms of the Book of Boba was the characterization of Boba himself. The once ruthless bounty hunter was now a crime lord who didn't actually commit very many crimes, who chose to rule through respect instead of fear, and many fans said that Boba spoke too much. He was meant to be a man of few words, but he wasn't in this show. And while it makes sense for Boba Fett's character to change, and I did love the Tusken scenes and the Tusken transformation, in this case, the Book of Boba Fett strayed a bit too far from the character we fell in love with in the 80s. Now, on a positive note, if Boba does make an appearance in Mando Season 3, this is going to be a great opportunity between adding to Boba Fett's character and story, while using him sparingly, so that when he does show up it's always a nice surprise. You just know that he's gonna kick ass. Going forward, knowing we have pirates and criminals in The Mandalorian Season 3, Boba could use his resources as a crime lord to help Din, so their stories keep overlapping. And the best part about The Mandalorian Season 3 is we're not stuck on Tatooine. I mean, sure, we're gonna go there, we're gonna see Peli Motto, but hopefully it's only gonna be brief. We've seen so much of that planet in recent shows. Now there's one problem from the Book of Boba Fett which we need to address. Grogu is back with Din after choosing the path of a foundling rather than a Jedi. In order for The Mandalorian Season 3 to be impactful and well written, they need to give us a compelling Grogu story from here on out, and a good reason for them to be reunited instead of just missing each other and not being ready for the ways of the Jedi. What I'm saying is, it needs to be a deliberate platform for Grogu's future to be built on. And look, the season is all about Mandalore. Din Djarin, Bo-Katan, the Armorer, Paz Vizsla, all of those characters, but Grogu cannot be left behind. Staying on the subject of the Book of Boba Fett's relationship to the Mandalorian, I also want to know what's going to happen with the Naboo Starfighter situation. Is Din Djarin going to stay in it, or is he going to upgrade to something bigger? Something which is both a vehicle and a home, like the Razor Crest, but that got blown up.
Woo! I like this! I like this!
And one more question I have based on the Book of Boba Fett. From the teaser trailer, it seems as though R5 is going to be Din Djarin's new astromech, so he's gonna part ways with Peli Motto. And in light of all of this, just a reminder, tomorrow is the Mandalorian Season 3 final trailer. Are we gonna see Boba Fett in it? Let's wait and see. And so now guys, staying on Mando for just a moment, Moff Gideon actor Giancarlo Esposito recalls the first time he met the Grogu puppet. In his own words he said, "We walked by a table and he said casually, 'Hey, you want to take a look at the child?' And he's talking about Jon Favreau, and he pulls off the canvas and I look at this practical child and he explained to me it was going to be this, it was going to be that, CGI, and I said no, this is perfect. And then the puppeteer walked by in that very moment and the puppeteer said, 'Do you want to see and talk to him?' I went, 'Okay,' and the child opened its eyes, turned its head, wiggled its ears. You can't take your eyes off this child. Grogu is fascinating, mysterious, and smart." And I looked at John and I said, "John, this is the star of the show." And he stood back and he scratched his chin and he said, "Do you think so?" And I said, "I know so. And every scene that I'm in has to be with this child." And we heard a similar story with Pedro Pascal, but also Ludwig Göransson. They both said in interviews that Jon Favreau didn't realize just how big Grogu was going to be. He and Dave knew it was going to be popular, but they didn't realize Grogu would be literally a sensation, a pop culture phenomenon, even more than Yoda himself. But I think originally Grogu wasn't meant to be the main character, it was always Din, and while it still is, the two of them go together. You hear the word Mandalorian, you think Grogu, and I don't think John and Dave realized that. So going forward into Season 3 and Season 4, they're probably going to have to accommodate for the fact that Grogu needs a wider story. And John did say at Star Wars Celebration that for the future of the Mandalorian shows, some of his original ideas have to be revamped and played with. And that's true of any show that spans a long time. So really awesome comments there. I'm so excited for Chapter 17 on March the 1st. Now just before I go guys, we're gonna do a fun quiz. What percentage Omega are you? Now I'm the middle bit of Omega, the word Meg is between the O and the A, but let's see this quiz and where it takes us. What percentage Omega am I? So the first question is, what makes a good soldier? They follow orders, they help people in need, they look out for their squad, or they always complete the mission. I would say helping people in need. That's a very Jedi trope. Not saying Omega is force sensitive or anything like that, but I would say helping people in need, but also looking out for their own squad. So let's go with this one. What is your ideal job? Fitness coach, lab assistant, teacher, or manager? I'm gonna say lab assistant. Sounds the most fun. How do you like to unwind? Archery, chess, snacking, or napping? I think I'm gonna have to choose napping. Which member of Clone Force 99 would you take on a road trip? I think Tech would be too intense. Wrecker would be a good laugh. Hunter would have some of those deeply meaningful conversations. And Echo would be a great storyteller. All of those experiences during the Clone Wars. I might go with Echo. Which Star Wars character do you find the most relatable? Harrison Jula, Gonki, Boba Fett, or Kylo Ren? I've got to go with Boba Fett. How do you prefer to travel? By boat, by train, first class only, or with family? Boat sounds really nice, but I'm gonna say with family. What is your greatest strength? Physical fitness, mental acuity, compassion and empathy, curiosity and inquisitiveness? That's very Omega. Discovering the universe, the galaxy around her. I'm gonna say this one, compassion. How good is your hand-eye coordination? I would say pretty good. I do often drop things when I'm sleepy, but pretty good. You're donating some items to charity. Choose one item to keep. Lula, Bad Batcher toy, kaleidoscope, or helmet? I'm gonna keep the helmet. What Star Wars creature would make the best pet? We had this one in the quiz the other day. Ruby, a baby Rancor, an Ordo Moondragon, or an Ice Spider? I'm gonna say a baby Rancor, because it's gonna grow up and be badass, and you can ride it around. Apparently, I'm 100% Omega. That can't be right. I think a lot of those were just generic. Well, there you go, guys. That's the quiz. If you enjoyed this one, as always, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next video. May the Force be with you always.